Hello everyone, and this is Pratik Shah from Mumbai, and thank you all for joining in. Uh, Today's webinar is basically based on how to optimize your CorelDRAW files for prepress output, and there are some elementary errors that most of the users make while preparing the final files for the output. So let's try to get rid of them and make the file as efficient as possible for the final production. And before we start the actual topic, there is one tip to start up with for designers I would like to share. Now, as a graphic designer, the very important aspect of designing is that you need to view your artwork at the actual size, that is at 1:1 actual size, how your final product would be looking after the final production. So how to view those your design at 1:1 final actual size, how to get in this setting done in CorelDRAW, let's see step by step. Now for this to work, first of all, you'll have to go to your desktop, right click on the desktop anywhere and select screen resolution and make a note of the resolution of your monitor. Like for example, here I see 1280 by 800 as my resolution. I'll just make a note of these values. And now the next step is a little manual work. You'll have to measure the size of your monitor physically with a scale or a ruler. And you'll have to measure both the horizontal as well as the vertical exact size of your display, not the monitor to be precise. You'll have to measure the viewing area of your display from left to right and top to bottom. So for example, in my case, the horizontal viewing area is about 23.5 inches and vertical from top to bottom is about 13.25 inches. Now we'll have to do some maths here. I'll go to tools, customization, select the toolbox option and go to zoom tool. There's something called as calibrate rulers here. Here you'll see two values, horizontal as well as vertical. Now before entering these values, let us do some calculations here. I'll switch to inches. First you'll have to, let's say, take the horizontal side. My horizontal resolution was 1280 pixels. I will divide this value exactly by the exact actual viewing area of my screen, that is 23.5 inches. I'll make a note of this value, that is 54.47 to round up to second decimal. Same thing I'll have to do for the vertical. And divide it by the actual viewing area of my display. This comes to about 60.38. Now I'll have to enter these values in ruler calibration. Horizontal is 54.47 and 60.38. Okay. Make sure zoom relative to 1:1 is enabled. Okay. So henceforth, the object that you've created of say 1 inch by 1 inch will be exactly of the same size when you view the display at 1:1, that is 100% zoom level. So if you measure this box with a ruler, it will exactly be of 1 inch by 1 inch. So this is very important because you get to see the actual size of your artwork at the 100% display. You'll have to, you'll be able to view the final result, how it would look after the final production. So this is one tip to begin with. Let's start with reference file I'll just open up. This is a file that is not optimized for prepress basically, and we'll see what elementary errors are. Let's start with a new blank document with a 300 dpi resolution and CMYK, because this is for a prepress print media. Let us start with the CMYK. And in a normal workflow, with reference to this page, let's say, let's divide this page into 5 parts maybe. And start creating object from top. Let's say, for example, these are the 5 parts that I've created. Maybe I'll have to just move this below. Now, let's say you are importing a high resolution image for this. I'll take the same image that I've used in the reference and I'll power clip this in the top side. I'll import another image that I've used. Let's see this. I'll apply some lens filter to this. Let's say multiply maybe. All right. Import one more image. And lastly, this is the image that was used for the bottom part again. So this is the basic normal workflow that designers go through, while importing a very high resolution bitmap and then power clipping the bitmaps into a smaller size container. Now let's save this file, temporary. Now because all these images are very high resolution images, you will notice that the file size of the file that we just saved will shoot up to about, I think, 100 MB maybe. Yeah, it's about 52, 53 MB. So to avoid using very high quality images at this full image, what you can do is, because this is only the area we are going to use this image for, we can crop the image to the size of the power clip container, maybe this area, and this is the second image. Even that will be cropping. And even now, if you can notice, this image is still about a 331 dpi, which is a little higher, not as high, but it's a little higher than prepress requirement of about 300 dpi. So this is one of the steps we need to take. Over here also the resolution is 417 dpi, which is quite higher than what is required for prepress printing. First up, we'll be cropping the image, and you can then convert the bitmap to 300 dpi CMYK image here. Same goes for the third file. We'll have to crop this image first, because this is only the image that we are going to use. It's only the area we are going to use for this image. Even here, this image quality is, it's a little lesser than 300. That is fine enough. So let's save this file back. And now if you notice the file size, it will be dramatically reduced to 24 MB, which is almost half of what was earlier, which is quite helpful in when you are dealing with multi-page documents where you are using too much of high resolution images. So make sure your images are about 300 dpi, because even though you use the image which is of higher resolution of say 2000 or 3000 dpi, eventually they will be downscaled to 300 dpi anyways. So it will unnecessarily pile up the file size, and eventually it will be a workflow issue while working on the multiple page documents. So this is how you can reduce the file size considerably. Another thing in prepress to make sure things goes well is you make sure under the color management that a correct CMYK profile is selected, preferably US web coated swap v2. Generally in India, at least I've seen people using this profile to quite an extent. So basically this is recommended for Indian region basically. Now let's get back to the original file that created. So this is the file which is not optimized, which is about 100 MB of file size. Quickly I will crop this as well and convert it into a 300 dpi bitmap. Now this is a 1000 dpi image, which is of practically no use for prepress printing. Maximum we want is for about 300 dpi, so we can reduce this bitmap as well to 300 dpi. At the bottom there is one more image, which is quite big. We can crop it. Another way to crop a bitmap is there is just an alternative way. If you don't want to use the crop command, is you can use the shaper tool to resize the bitmap area to the power clip box size. You can drag the nodes and then simply click on the crop button or on the property bar. This will also crop the image and then we can convert it to a 300 dpi image here. Now if you see at the 1:1 zoom level, you'll be able to see the final product size. So this is how your actual display size will look after production. Now, many times as a designer, we use elements that are readily available on the internet from free clip art sites and everywhere. And most of the designs that are available on the internet are probably of RGB and not of the CMYK values. So if you go to file and check the document properties, you will scroll down to the statistics. You will notice that there are about 245 RGB fill objects in the document, and there is one RGB image existing in this CMYK document, which we need to take care of. Now the quickest way is to use the find and replace command in CorelDRAW. You need to replace a color, click next, or maybe you can click replace a color model itself. You need to find RGB model and you need to replace the RGB with a CMYK model for all the fills. I will say replace all. This replaces all the RGB values with closest CMYK value. And I'll have to repeat this for any outlines. However, we don't have any outlines in RGB as mentioned in this statistics. There are no RGB outlines present over here. So there are still 45 RGB objects, maybe on the third page. To be just, you can also try this with outline option if RGB with outlines. There are no objects with RGB. So this is how you can convert all the RGB values to CMYK values. Now to find out the, maybe I will just undo this replacement for a time being. Now in CorelDRAW there is a feature called as color proofer settings. Now you can always enable this color proofer. There is a checkbox in the color proof docker. What will happen is it will give you an idea of what colors are out of the printing range in your document. You'll have to enable this out of gamut colors here. You can see this color, all those values that are in green are not printable right now. As you can see, this is a RGB value, RGB color, which is not printable in a CMYK gamut. So it's showing you a green color. We'll switch to page 2 and let's try all these green colors. Let's change to some else, blue color. All these blue colors are non-printable right now. So we need to convert all this to CMYK so that we can see the final output, how it looks. Even here, there is one RGB object that we'll change to CMYK. So now when you go to color proof settings and when you enable out of the gamut colors, now there is no warning for out of gamut colors over here. And over here also, there are some objects that are out of gamut. This looks like a bitmap image maybe. It might be a RGB bitmap. Okay, it's a grayscale color, so we need to even change the model, grayscale model. So now there is no warning or out of gamut colors available in the document. So this document is now safe for prepress printing. So this is the best way to find out if your document is there going to be any shift in your colors during the production. So soft proofing is the best way to go, and you always make sure that soft proof or proof colors is activated while you are working on a design, so that it saves you some time by avoiding the out of gamut colors. Another issue that many users face is, they use images from internet, ready-made images from internet. And usually the images that you get from internet are usually 72 dpi files, which are not ideal for a prepress environment. So you can see the difference when you use a 72 dpi image, how blurry or jaggy the images look. So you need to make sure that the original image that you are using is not a 72 dpi, but the original image has to be a 300 dpi itself. Doesn't make any difference if you convert a 72 dpi image to a 300 dpi. It won't make any difference to the image. So your original image has got to be sharper and cleaner at 300 dpi, which will only uh, be the ideal option to for the images to be clear and crisp. So avoid using images from the web, which are generally at 72 or 96 dpi. Another thing is when you import text from third-party softwares, let's say Microsoft Word or maybe some web page, you copy paste text in a CorelDRAW. There might be occasions where the text does not come in as a CMYK black. Most probably it would be a RGB black text object, so which is very hard to make out in certain cases. So what you can do to be 100% sure is you can create a box behind the text object and fill it with a CMYK black color, and then you'll be able to make out the difference between RGB black and CMYK black. So this text is having some part as a RGB black text, which we will need to change. Maybe or you can select the text box and change it to black, CMYK. Many of us use barcodes in CorelDRAW that we generate from Corel barcode wizard. Even by default, those barcodes are RGB black. So what you can do is you can change it to CMYK black, which makes it easier for a prepress output. Because generally if you keep any color in RGB black, eventually in a prepress environment that RGB value will be converted into uh, CMYK equivalent black, which will not be K100, but it would be about C75, M68, Y67 and K90, or maybe similar to all these four values. So avoid using RGB fills in your artwork if it's for the prepress environment. So another way to avoid huge file sizes is to use externally linked images. Like let's say for example, You are creating a catalog for a multi-page catalog for products of this kind. Now, if you notice each and every image here would be around, I would say, 2000 DPI, and even this is 1900 DPI. So if you are creating a catalog of this type of products which has multi-page documents of 30 or 40 pages, your file size will jump to well over 1 GB or 2 GB. So it does not make any practical sense to keep your images at such a high resolution. Instead, what you can do is you can use externally linked images while importing the product images. There is an option here which says import as externally linked image. When you import this as an externally linked image, the actual image data is not saved with your CorelDRAW file. It only saves the reference to that file. So when you save this file, let's try importing all the data first. The only drawback in using externally linked images is you'll have to import it one by one. There is no way to import linked images, multiple images at once. So you'll have to import one image at a time. So what will happen is when you save this file, the file size is considerably lower than what you can when you have with images into the file itself. You can see the difference of about 181 MB. The file size is reduced to about less than 10 MB. When you import all these remaining images, it would be around 12 to 15 megabytes compared to 181 MB. So this is very uh, important to use the external link images when you are working on, let's say, 60, 70 page catalog file or something. So navigating between the pages is a little easier than when you use a full scale resolution images in the file. The only thing you need to take care is when you are done with your final design and you're using externally linked images, you'll have to collect this design for output. And then what happens is CorelDRAW will create a folder with all the linked images that you have used in your document into a folder. So you can simply send this folder with a CDR file and all the used linked images to your process house for final processing. So this is one way of reducing file size for the efficient prepress environment. Another thing that many people or many users, many designers prefer is instead of sending a open CDR file to the process house, they prefer sending PDF files. So you need to make sure when you are publishing to a PDF, you publish the prepress document as a PDF X-3 format which is having all the compatibility features which supports transparency and lens effects. So you make sure you publish your PDF with X3. Of course, the file size will be quite huge considerably because it will be an uncompressed file PDF. So make sure you use this preset for the PDF output. Maybe we can just switch to this file, and what if we save this file after optimizing? You can see the file difference between the two files. The 102 MB file is reduced to just 27 MB. So it's much easier to work on these files because the file access gets very fast, while file saving, file opening, and all those tasks gets much faster. So even opening of files will be very fast compared to the other option. This is how fast the file opens up when you are using an optimized images. There is also one thing that you'll have to take care of if you are using, say like here, you're using a lens effect on your bitmap image, which is in this case. Make sure you convert it and flatten the lens effect before you send the file to the process house for final processing, because that will make sure that there is no change in the lens or transparency effect at the uh, process house. So this is one of the trick that you can use and flatten out the lens effect in your bitmap. You can see, let's check if there is any. Now you can see there is no RGB fills, no RGB outlines, and no RGB bitmaps in the document. So the file is safe for a prepress environment. There is no out of gamut colors also on any of the pages. So even that confirms that it's safe for the prepress environment. I think this is it uh, for the webinar for today's topic. I think Cecil should come in. Cecil.
Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you. So everybody, don't hesitate to send me your question. So we'll have some time to answer a lot of questions if you have. I have a first question, Patrick.
Yeah.
So from Roger, when it is inevitable to use low resolution images, what do you feel is the best way to enlarge and upsample them?
It is not a good idea to upsample a low resolution image. It won't make any difference to the image at all if the original quality of the image is low already. What upscale you can prefer only when original image is good enough. Let's say it's a 300 dpi image and you want to upscale it to 600 or 900 dpi. That could be possible, but it is not recommended in a prepress environment to upscale a 72 dpi image to a 300 dpi image. No, not at all recommended.
Okay. Roger is giving you also kind of a suggestion. He noticed that when you convert your RGB bitmaps to CMYK, you have the transparent background option selected.
Right.
Your files would be even more greatly optimized if you deselect this option.
But then you will lose the transparency effect if at all you have used on the images. That is, you'll have to decide at the time of the conversion whether those bitmap images are using any transparent effects. It depends from design to design, basically.
Okay.
Yes, if there is no transparency used in the bitmap and you are sure you're not going to use it in your design, you can disable the transparency for the conversion.
Okay, great. For the moment, we don't have any questions, so let's see. Let's leave a few minutes to people to ask their question. Oh, another one. Okay, from Roger. In what circumstances would you suggest to use aliasing versus non-aliasing when converting to bitmap?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Sorry.
In what circumstances would you suggest to use aliasing versus non-aliasing when you convert to a bitmap?
Anti-aliasing you are saying?
Aliasing.
It is recommended to keep aliasing option enabled, anti-aliasing, yes.
Okay.
To
And is there some circumstances like where you deselect aliasing, or you always select aliasing?
No, generally we always select anti-aliasing enabled. Aliasing we disable only when you have usually flat colors in your design, where generally we don't use then disable anti-aliasing in a prepress designs.
Okay.
Generally.
Okay, so generally you take non-aliasing when you have flat colors, right?
Yes.
Okay, understood. Question from Bartos. I'm not sure I said your first name correctly. Sorry for that, if not. I really love Corel on work with CorelDRAW since version 6, but I still have sometimes problems with the colors. My printing product are dull. The colors often are not. Shining as on my display, of course. I'm using the printing profile from my printing company, but I still got the color problems. Do you have any suggestion, Pratik, to help Bartos?
Well, it really depends on, it is very difficult to suggest on the color management side from here, but I would suggest to use the correct color profile. That's the best way to go, and as far as possible use the color proofer, which gives you the general idea of how your output would be on with relation to the profile used, you know. So
Okay.
in your color proof Docker, you have the option of selecting or the profile with which CorelDRAW will simulate the output. Like, let's say I change this color profile from US Web Coated to, let's say, Fogra 39. You can see slight change in the color tones over here. I'll zoom in a little. When I switch the color profile, there is a slight change in the color, the way the simulation goes. So you can use this color proofer as a guideline to how your colors would print in the final output. Probably the only issue could be the color profiles, I would think. If the color profiles are perfect, then I don't see there should be any issue.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pratik. Another question from Roger. Do you have any suggestions as to which color profiles to use for spot colors?
For soft colors?
Spot colors.
Sorry, I didn't get it. Spot colors?
Do you have any suggestion as to which color profiles to use for spot colors?
Spot colors, okay. So it depends on the printer basically, what printer color profile is being used at the hardware side. You'll have to match up with that eventually. And as far as my personal experience goes, I have always used swap coded, US swap coded profile for my designs, and I've never faced any issues with spot covers. So I do use US web coded swap too for my prepress jobs. Hello?
Yeah, Pratik, I'm still there.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't received any further question for the moment. Um, oh, a question from Silvio. Hi, Silvio. Um, when you convert images directly from RGB to CMYK mode, which is the special care that you use to prevent not losing image quality?
There are two ways to look into it. When you convert an RGB image to a CMYK, depending on the image, there has got to be a color shift definitely. There will not be a drop in quality as such if you are maintaining the proper DPI resolution. But yes, there will be a considerable color shift in certain images because RGB color gamut is much larger or wider than CMYK gamut. So yes, certain RGB colors will be lost in the conversion to CMYK. But I don't think there will be any loss in quality if DPI is maintained.
Yeah, Pratik.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at the questions. How about size increase after conversion?
size
Yeah.
increased after the conversion.
Yeah.
It should not happen technically unless you are upscaling the image. Otherwise, no, it should not happen. Technically, it should not happen. I mean, you'll have to see if it is a file specific issue or there are some other elements, unused symbols, or maybe which is creating some issues, or I'm not sure. But if you are not upscaling the image resolution, then there is no way the file size should increase.
Okay. I have a question from John. I'm not sure it's a question. So John, if you can perhaps rephrase your question. It's about go over calibrating the monitor size. I think it might be related to the question about the image quality. If I will let John answer me via the questions window. So let's wait for an additional 1-2 minutes to see if we have some additional question. Oh, here another question from Silvio. What format you recommend for printing? A JPEG, TIFF, or PNG?
I will always go for a TIFF format, which is an uncompressed format for images.
Yeah,
And JPEGs are not recommended for prepress at all.
yeah.
And PNG is ideally used for web, not for prepress. So TIFF is the best option to go if it's the artwork is going to be printed in a prepress environment.
Okay. Okay, good. PDF also may be an option, right?
PDF is basically a container, I would say. It's not any image format kind of thing. Basically, it will bundle your images depending on the settings you have provided. So yes, it's a standard format accepted around the world globally. So PDF is also one of the option, but you have to make sure there is no compression uh, in the bitmap images during creation of PDF.
Okay. How important is it to save the color profiles with the file when creating a PDF?
It is highly important to save the color profile. Highly recommended. If you are not saving your color profile with your PDF or the CDR file, there are chances that the person who is going to use the file for processing might use some different profile than what you have used at your end while designing, and then there might be shift in colors during the production. So if you have attached your color profiles along with your file itself, then there won't be any color shifts.
Okay, excellent. John would like to see again what you have showed at the start of your webinar. You know, when you were doing the demo about the monitor calibration. Is that possible to redo this part, Pratik?
Okay, sure, I'll do that. The first thing you have to make note of is you go to your screen resolution by right clicking on the desktop and make a note of this resolution values. That is 1280 by 800. And depending on your monitor resolution, it might be different. And then you'll have to manually measure the viewing area of your screen. That is not the monitor size actually, but the viewing area. Only the actual image area of your monitor, where you can see the left edge of the CorelDRAW UI and the right edge of the UI. And same way from top to bottom. You have to measure these two values manually and write down horizontal and vertical values. In my case, just for a guide, I will say my values are 23.5 inches wide viewing area and 13.25 inches from top to bottom. So when you go to tools, customization, you go to toolbox and you select this zoom tool. There's something called as calibrate rulers. Now you'll have to divide your monitor resolution that you have noted earlier, divide this by the actual screen size, which gives you one specific value like 54.47. Same goes for vertical. It's 800 by your actual physical display area. This gives 60.38. So you'll have to make note of these two values and enter it in horizontal as well as vertical boxes, and make sure zoom relative to 1:1 is enabled. And then when you create a 1" by 1" box in CorelDRAW, when you measure it 1:100% display, you will be able to get the exact size of this box as 1" by 1" if you measure it manually with a scale on your screen.
Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. John, let me know if it answered your question. Another question is about, could you repeat your method for cropping images?
Cropping images.
Yes?
There are two ways you can crop images. Basically, one is there is a ready-made tool that is available on the toolbar, which is the third tool from top. You can simply select the image first, select the crop tool and drag across the area you want to maintain or keep it, and then double click within the area, and this is a cropped image. Same thing I'll show in for this image. Maybe you select the image, select the crop tool, mark the area you want to keep, and double click within that area, and it crops the image. Yes. And another way, alternative way is to use the shaping tool and move the nodes according to the area you want to keep, and then simply click on the crop button on the property bar. These are the two ways you can crop the bitmap image.
Good. Excellent. Thank you, Pratik.
Yeah.
Another question, do you recommend export all text as curves when exporting to PDF, or is it better to keep it as just a text?
It depends on fonts used basically. I mean, it depends on what kind of licenses that specific fonts you have used has, Some fonts does not allow you to uh, get embedded in the PDF document. Some fonts are restricted to only view and print, not to be embedded at all. So for such type of fonts, it is highly recommended that those texts be converted to CORS. Otherwise, for other non-licensed or free fonts, you can supply the font files along with your CDR files. It's fine enough.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very for your question. Another question from Silvio about PDF. When you export file to PDF format, do you select convert fonts to curves?
No, I don't. Depending on the fonts that I've used, if in certain cases where the depending on the font license, if the font is not embeddable in the PDF, I would convert those texts to curves. Otherwise, I would keep it as text.
Good, thank you. I think that's pretty all in terms of question, many question, and anyway we are currently 3 minutes to finish. So funny comment from Roger. He said, excellent webinar, Pratik, but if your clock settings are correct, and I guarantee you, Roger, that his clock settings are correct, it's time for you to go to bed. So yeah, thank you very much. So it's part of the beauty of CorelDRAW. We have really very global, passionate users, and thank you very much, Patrick. Well, just for your time today, and for you because it's getting late now, and for all the techniques and the tips you